This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace.
Last year, I went through many different life changes. I needed to take a pause and examine how I was feeling in the inside to better show up for the ones who need me to be my best version of myself.
When you're navigating life's changes, Talkspace can help. Talkspace is the #1 rated online therapy, bringing you professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatry providers that you can access anytime, anywhere.
Living a busy life, navigating a long-distance relationship, becoming a first-step father, Talkspace made all of those journeys possible. I could speak with my therapist in the office. I could speak with my therapist in the comfort of my home. I was never alone.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance, no problem. Now get $80 off your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Told a lot of lies about achievement. They called you when they got you to believe it. Thumb and finger held to their foreheads in an L shape. Trapped in a capitalist hellscape. Let's fight back and have some talks about class and the massive cost of the disastrous plots of fascists and Nazis, fat cats and fox. It's 1,000 natural shocks. A Bad with Money podcast.
Hello and welcome to 1,000 Natural Shocks, a Bad with Money podcast. I don't think we've ever had a more relevant situation and guest. Do you want to tell my audience who you are and what you do?
I'm Aleksandra. I'm an independent journalist. I cover mainly trans issues on my website, transiticsnews.com. So that's just a portmanteau of politics and trans. It's honestly a bit cringy and everyone mispronounces it. But at this point, I'm kind of married to it. I'm fine with it.
I am a religious reader of what you do. And so I just want, before we get into why today is quite a day, I wanted to get background on you in terms of being an independent journalist.
Okay, so I think let's just start with this. I think to understand why I do what I do, I think I need to explain a little bit more about who I am and how I ended up to be in the situation that I am. So I'm just going to ask you this question. How old do you think I am?
No, this is a trick question for trans people. This is an absolute trick question because we look a lot younger than we are.
Okay, how young do I look?
24.
Younger.
You're younger than that?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Because we always look so young. I didn't want to say you were in high school, but
Not quite.
Okay.
Not quite either. I'm 19.
okay, I didn't want to. Okay, I
So-
was going to be like, you're not, it was occurring to me in real time. You're not 17, are you?
No, I'm not 17. I'm not. I'm 19.
We are different generations. I'm also
Hmm.
like new to being trans. So being like, oh, you're a trans elder is like not true for me at all.
Yeah, I don't think I'm a trans elder. I mean, I realized I was trans in 2022 for people from Texas because I've lived here basically my whole life. I don't go to school here, thankfully, but I do live here. And basically my whole life I lived here. And then in 2022, the state starts doing those investigations of parents, the child abuse stuff, if people remember that. Saw the news. I wanted to come out and I was like, you know what? The less my parents know, the better. So I didn't say anything for like a year because I was just afraid that I would be taken away from my parents, which is a ridiculous thing to fear. And it is a
Wow.
ridiculous thing for the state to make you fear. So then I break summer 2023. The state has just passed Senate Bill 14. They ban gender affirming care for minors. The child abuse investigations are not needed anymore. And then my mom isn't exactly the most supportive, but she's like, okay, we're going to find you a therapist that can help you work through this. And all the therapists were like, I'm sorry, we can't.
Because legally.
Legally, we can't because Senate Bill 14 bans us from facilitating gender affirming care in any way. And so for 2 months, I couldn't find a therapist.
Wow.
They all said no. My mom contacted dozens upon dozens, couldn't find a single one. And during that time, I got pretty bad. My mental state got pretty bad. I don't really think that's something I should be getting into here, but it was not a fun time for me. I'll just leave it
course.
at that. I almost didn't make it,
Of course.
but yeah, I turned 18 October of 2024. In March, I started doing what I do. Really, I want to hold them accountable. Like the reason that I do what I do is because for years, I was basically stuck in a situation that nobody even knew was happening. Not until Ken Paxton actually said, well, actually, this interpretation is correct. Did people start noticing? But no, this has been happening since at least the summer of 2023, and nobody said anything about that. And I guess I just kind of want to be the voice that I didn't have.
Yeah, it breaks my heart when you're talking about worrying that you'll be taken away from your parents, that they've put such an onus on children, like a
Yeah.
mental weight and parentifying you, or not even parentifying, but like adultifying you
Mhm.
in a way that is so stressful and so scary. And no kid should have to go through that just to be able to be themselves. And so what changed?
He said this was in March. He released an opinion. He's like, yes, a doctor that affirms a trans kid's identity could be potentially facilitating those treatments if the parents decide to go out of state because the identity was encouraged, whatever. That's why he went through
Wow.
that. It's shameful. It's beyond shameful. This is basically the only state that it's happening in.
But it's so, I mean, it's that thing I'm sure that we talk about all the time on the left, which is you care so much about kids, and yet you, Alexandra, almost didn't make it.
Yeah. And the whole thing is, I don't think people are talking about us just in general. I think the focus goes on the kids that are happy that were allowed to transition young, and they go up and they testify and they're like, well, I was allowed to transition and I'm happy. They don't present the counterfactual of that. They don't say these kids weren't allowed to transition because of you, and here's what happened to them.
They don't make it.
Yeah.
It's just so much harder to go up and talk about.
That too. I mean, there's not that many of us around right now. There's not.
Yeah.
These laws are recent enough to the point where people like me are pretty rare.
Yeah. And wow, so you decided that you were gonna pretty soon after you decided you were gonna write about this stuff.
Yeah, I started my site as more like a blog. It was supposed to be more of like a blog. But then I one day in like June of last year, I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a journalist. And it worked. I don't know how the barriers to entry are just that low.
I think the barriers, it's not that low. It's the June 2025 changed things for a lot of us in terms of feeling motivated to just be like, fuck it, and go into these political spheres. And also, I think you're right in terms of the voices we hear are usually people who were allowed to transition and say, this was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Hmm.
Or you get the detransitioners, the special little ones who get to testify about that,
Mhm.
but there is no voice for the specific things that you were probably talking about. So there is a space for that, especially in a journalistic sense.
Yeah, I mean, I basically call myself like the anti-detransitioner. Like
Go on.
I was debating this guy. He showed up to my college campus with a microphone and camera, and he was talking about abortion. I start talking to him about gender affirming care because I know that I'm gonna win in that area. I start saying my story, and this guy who's fighting about it, he just goes and he tells me, I don't care that you almost killed yourself. And his wife, this is the best part, his wife has been there. She's been supporting everything that he said. But when he says that, I look over at her and she starts shaking her head and goes, mm-mm, mm-mm. That's the kind of story, in the same way that the left has trouble fighting against the stories of detransitioners, because you can't really discredit an anecdote. You can't really
Right.
say, oh, well, this didn't happen to you. You either have to accept it or do something like that and look very bad.
Right. I love that.
Yeah.
You can't discredit an anecdote. Damn.
No, you can't.
I know, but that's put so well. Put it on a throw pillow. Damn. Yeah. It's also interesting the disconnect between MAGA men and MAGA women. I think there is kind of this, sometimes if you get the women alone, they're like, well, yeah, classic and terrible, and makes you even more complicit, maybe because you do know it's wrong.
I think maybe it's that empathy isn't dead. That's what I would think. All of these discussions are always so hypothetical because they need to be hypothetical.
Right.
Because the only way that hate works is if it's hypothetical. As soon as you rope in people, real people, into the equation, a lot fewer people are going to actually buy that.
Yeah, I think there is an idea that not specifically trans people, but people come to me to argue things I haven't said, to say, well, you want this and X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, I didn't say that. That's not what I want. Well, Biden, blah, blah, blah. I don't give a fuck about Biden. Well, this thing happened with like a trans kid and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, like I'm not arguing that every trans person is a good person. I'm not arguing that every single kid that is allowed to transition is not going to detransition.
Yeah.
What I'm arguing is that that choice needs to remain with kids, parents, and their doctors, and not be made by people who have no idea what the fuck they're talking about, who are just assuming, well, look, you regretted it, so all these kids are going to regret it. And maybe some of them don't believe that, but I'd be
Yeah.
willing to bet that a lot of them do.
Listen, people regret nose jobs. We have a whole show called Botched about people regretting surgeries.
People regret Harry Potter tattoos too.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is. I mean, there's the whole gender affirming care thing about men going to Turkey to fix their hairlines and blah, 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 breast implants and whatever. But yeah, I mean, this is like, I don't know. I got really spooked by the Bureau of Prisons thing that came out about how they're gonna detransition us in jail.
Yeah.
And this is so minor, but one thing that stuck out was that trans women in prison were not allowed to have makeup. And so I was like, is that a general rule? But no, cis women in jail can have makeup.
Yeah, no, it's not a general rule. So like the whole thing with prison is like they will pay you money for doing some kind of work, and then you can buy things off of like a list.
Yeah.
It's called the commissary. So that's where they get it. These trans women were previously allowed to buy it, and the Trump
Right.
administration wants to take that away. It's something that they worked for.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Either side should, I mean, whatever. It's like that whole thing of like more trans prison guards, but like either side should be able to buy the same stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a minor thing that stuck out to me about that Bureau of Prisons ruling. But if anyone wants to just scare themselves into laying in bed for 3 days, read that.
Read the policy or
Yeah, the Bureau of Prisons
Yeah.
policy.
Oh my God, that policy is horrible. Like,
They're gonna taper us off our medications. I wrote a whole thing about
Yeah.
it. I'll link it maybe, but yeah, they're gonna taper us off hormones and then try to treat it psychiatrically. So,
yeah, I've written a series of articles about it. I did not expect those to do so well. Like, those are some of my best performing articles, to the point where like I just see people online talking about trans people in prisons all the time. I'm like, where was this
right.
6 months ago? Like, I'm very happy that we have it now.
Yeah.
But I would have liked to see more. I'm going to be honest. This is an issue that really matters, and not a lot of people talk about it. Not a lot of journalists talk about it. And I think it's really important.
Yeah, I would recommend everyone look into the story of Ashley Diamond. That was a huge
Oh my
one.
God. Yeah.
And that was like going on around the same time that Laverne Cox was on Orange is the New Black.
Wait,
And this was like a true
remind me.
story.
Ashley Diamond, was she Georgia?
Yes, she was in
Yeah,
Georgia.
Georgia. Yeah.
But that one was so the thing that happened today, do you want to talk about what you've been spending the last 5 hours trying to cover?
Yeah, so the Supreme Court ruled that, here, I'm just going to pull up what I have written on it that I'm going to publish after this. So the Supreme Court ruled that West Virginia and Idaho's bans on trans participation in sports, specifically as it applies to, I'm pretty sure this was just high school. I'd have to double check, but I'm 95% sure that they're not illegal, that they can stand. And there were two different parts of this. The one that I found really interesting was the part about Title IX, because that was a unanimous decision. Title IX allows these laws, was a 9-0 decision. And I'm going to explain to you why.
Please.
Because
I hate everything.
Honestly, like, approaching this from a neutral perspective, I can see why. They still, the three liberals still said, well, equal protection still applies, and this is still wrong under equal protection. But the thing with Title IX is, one, so Kavanaugh writes that Title IX's prohibition on sex discrimination can only be interpreted as referring to biological sex. At the time that it was written, that's what it would have referred to, and that isn't actually a new thing. So in Bostock, which was the ruling that extended discrimination protections to trans people and gay people, the court also said the same thing. Gorsuch explicitly wrote that his decision would be operating on the assumption that sex signified only biological distinctions between male and female. To that end, he still said, well, no, but it's still discrimination. Because if you discriminate on someone because they're trans, you're saying I allow this behavior from cis women, but not from you. So that's why it's illegal. So under Title IX, the thing with Title IX, and this is what Gorsuch said, he defended his Bostock reason, actually, which I found really interesting. He said that was correct. It is still correct. The rest of the court, like, I'm pretty sure it was Thomas that referenced Bostock in his concurrence, and I'm like, huh? But
So
Mhm.
they were saying because it referred to biological sex the first time, that's what it will refer to now?
That's what it refers to
Hmm.
the point where because Title IX does allow sex discrimination, because it
Right.
does. It says you can separate teams and you can separate locker rooms, whatever. Then it can't be gender identity discrimination if it's not sex discrimination or if it's permissible sex discrimination. So that's
Okay.
why. That's why it was ruled in that fashion and thus restricting sports based on biological sex under Title IX is not illegal.
Okay.
Now, the rest of the and wait, just one more thing on that note. The plaintiff from West Virginia, Becky Pepper Jackson, she didn't actually contest that interpretation. Like she was like, yes, sex in Title IX meant biological sex.
Okay.
But in the equal protection argument, it was more of a, well, it doesn't really matter if it is discrimination or not, because the states have a rational reason for doing so.
Okay. So it
So
puts the power back to the states to decide.
it puts the power back to the states to decide because Kavanaugh writes, well, they have safety concerns. Stupid. They have
Okay.
fairness concerns. Stupid.
Yeah.
But he says that. And
Okay.
the sex classification is substantially related to that interest, to quote Kavanaugh. And so that's why he ruled in that fashion. I don't agree with that. Just for the record, I think that's dumb. I think there is no rational interest. I don't think there should be a rational interest to discriminate against people so plainly and so openly. I
There's
think
no
the fact
science
that
behind it.
I think the fact that the court is accepting it as science is the problem because the court says, well, there's a scientific debate. Let's let the states sort this out. We're just the neutral third entity. We can't rule on this.
Okay.
It's weird. It's very weird to look at.
There's how many trans athletes are there? Like 10?
Yeah, it's like 10. It's like
Like-
less than 10. It's so ridiculous. There's one in the entirety of West Virginia. That poor girl. I mean,
This is what I'm talking about when people come to me and want to argue trans issues that they think I'm thinking about or that they think I'm so passionate about or that I might have an opinion about that they already know what it is, so they're fighting with a version of me that doesn't exist, is that they're so worked up about these things. And I'm like, this is literally not a problem. This is a made up thing. Culture war bullshit. Even the stuff about the Olympics and
May
like,
Khalif, oh my God.
yes,
That
believing that
or-
that person
yeah.
was trans, which
Mm-hmm.
even
They still say it. They
I know.
still say it. It's
oh,
ridiculous.
they think Michelle Obama is trans. But anyway, the point is that which all of that is racism. But the point is that it's not a thing. And then with the Olympics, what one trans woman has ever? No, I don't think has a trans woman ever.
I'm pretty sure it's just been one. I'm pretty sure it was a woman from New Zealand.
There's been one trans woman to win a medal at the Olympics.
I don't think she won.
She didn't. She just participated.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it was like nothing. So when I was arguing with people about it, I was like, they're making a law about a thing that's not happening. Or they're like, well, we're going to make it so that gender affirming care for kids extends to 19. Why?
Because they
Yes.
want to push it up. And I think just talking about things that are made up, I mean, technically every single law that is rooted in scripture is made up. My state just said, okay, well, now in schools, the Bible is required reading, in case you guys missed that. Yeah, that happened a few days ago. And I'm just like, okay, so at least classify that in the fiction, please.
You know what? Let them read the Bible because that shit's fucked up. You want to know what's actually in the Bible? Good. Everyone should be mandated to read that shit because you'll come away being like, what the fuck? God is vengeful. God is terrifying. A lot of stuff is allowed and not allowed. That's very bad. Like, go for it. Go for it. Enjoy.
I don't care if someone has a religion. I don't care if I think it's rooted in reality or not,
Yeah.
because it has value to them, but it does not have value to me. I do not want to be roped into living my life according to those
Yeah.
ideals.
Read the Quran, read all of it. Because once you read that, good. You'll be firsthand account of like, we shouldn't follow any of this stuff. This is wild.
Yeah, it definitely is wild.
If you are an evangelical parent, you don't want your kid to read the Bible because they'll have context for your bullshit. So you should actually be working against this. But anyway, it's all just putting together like a dossier of anti-trans legislation to make the
Mhm.
things that we do illegal and then put us in institutions or jail / institution. This is the argument that's worked with people, is that I'm constantly like, it hasn't happened. It has not
Yeah.
happened. You're legislating future things that have not happened.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that can be sidestepped with that is it doesn't matter if it hasn't happened. This bill has already been proposed, passed, whatever. Like, we don't lose anything by passing it, is one of the things that I see sometimes.
Yeah.
It's about preventing it from happening in the future. It's weird
Great.
how much that
Well,
sidesteps.
yeah, we're focusing on so many things that are incorrect. Like, your time is a limit. This is what I would say, is like, your time is a limited resource. Your energy is a limited resource. You don't have food on the table and you don't have steady work and you don't have health insurance. So why do you care about this thing?
Want to know
What?
what the Trump administration has done with federal regulations? I could not believe it when I saw that this actually happened. So, like, just for some context, Executive Order 14168, the Defending Women from Gender Ideology and Restoring
Sure.
Truth to the Federal Government, that thing, it mandates that the word gender be replaced with sex in all federal regulations. And so, for some reason, just let me ask you this. Do you know what Wake Island is?
No.
So Wake Island is this weird military atoll in the Pacific.
Oh.
It's controlled by the Department of Defense. It has no permanent population. And its laws are written by the Department of Defense
Okay.
and posted to the Federal Register.
Okay.
So the Trump administration, they paid someone to change the 2 instances of gender in the Wake Island Code to sex. They paid someone to do that. They paid a lawyer to review it. They paid someone to submit it and look it over.
No one lives there?
It's just like 30 military people at a time. And they wasted. Someone got paid for that.
Right.
For changing gender to sex in the Wake Island Code.
You should be upset about your money going to these things. It doesn't matter. And then, you talked about like meeting people. Oftentimes you'll meet someone as a trans person and they'll say, well, you're cool. Like, I don't mean, I just mean about this other stuff. Like,
Yeah, but it affects all of us. Law doesn't discriminate in its application.
and then I go, so you don't actually care. So don't worry about what I'm up to.
Huh.
Don't worry about it. Care about the stuff that actually affects you. This is them distracting you. So don't just worry about the stuff that's actually going to fuck up your life. And it's not me.
Like Elon Musk, who's now a trillionaire.
Right. Someone got paid for Wake Island.
Someone got paid for Wake Island. And like, no shade to them. They probably just have to put food on their table.
Mm-mm.
Depends on the kind of lawyer that they are, but
Yeah.
it's so stupid. It's just so dumb. Like, I don't even think trans people can go there because we're banned from the military now. Like, what
Right.
kind of thing does that even do?
I'm screaming. Oh my God.
It's
Yeah.
so stupid. Like, I laughed about it for a good 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Stupid. It's so dumb.
Wow. Okay. So I asked you to bring some stories that you thought were underreported or that you thought people should know about that you had reported
Mhm.
on. So let's start with like the first one of those that people don't know about. For instance, me being like, I didn't know about Wake Island. Nobody knows about any of this stuff. So
Yeah, but why would someone know about Wake Island? People don't even know where it is.
because it's very funny.
Okay, the instance of them changing the laws is pretty funny, but
Yeah.
I've never met a single person who knows what Wake Island is. So
Yeah.
I guess Wake Island isn't really Woke Island anymore.
Put it on a pillow.
But anyway, the first story that I want to talk about is the state of Wyoming. I'm pretty sure they hate me now. But Wyoming has this ongoing gender change case. And in that case, they passed this law called the What is a Woman Act. I'm not kidding. House Bill 32 last year, What is a Woman Act? Referencing the really cringy documentary in quotes.
Sure. Yeah.
And that was their law defining sex. And so a woman from, I think it was Natrona County, I don't remember exactly where in the state that is, applied to change her birth certificate because since 1993, the state of Wyoming has allowed trans people to change their birth certificates after obtaining a court order.
Mm-hmm.
And a court ruled there. She applied for it, and the judge was like, can't do it, sorry. The law defines sex as just male and female, so I can't do it. So yeah, screw you.
He
And
just decided one day that
he
this
just
wasn't-
decided that the law meant that, even though the sponsor of the law said that it wouldn't affect that.
Okay.
So anyway, he rules against her. She appeals to the Supreme Court. But after the county ruling, because
Okay.
Wyoming doesn't have an appellate system because no one lives there. It's just straight to the Supreme Court. She applies for that. The state intervenes, and that's led by Attorney General Keith Kotz. And so the state wants to argue that the law actually does do that. And they issue an emergency regulation that bans the birth certificate changes. They do this in November.
Okay.
No one says anything. They file for the completed rule, 90 days of public comment. No announcement. They receive 0 public comments.
Of course.
Rule is repealed March 13th of it's like 3 months ago. And so this just happens. I find out about this and I start asking questions about the driver's license policy because the Wyoming Department of Transportation, they took down the form from their website. And now I have a lot, unrelated, but I have so many trust issues with a few states now. I just check them every single week. I'm like, did you take down your form? If you take down your form, I'm going to harass you until you give me an answer. I asked them. And one of the things that I found out a few months ago, because in December, I wrote a story about Indiana and other states that have lists of trans people. And I sent them a public records request. And I asked them, okay, what do you do? Like, I literally just asked them, like, give me policy guidance, whatever. What do you do with birth certificates that are requested to change their gender? I know that you don't process them, but what do you do with those applications? Do they just stay there forever? Can I have like whatever instructions your employees were sent? And they said, no guidance exists. We're just following the executive order. Now, I know that's bullshit because the state had previously published a memo March of last year that said the existing ones will be forwarded to the Attorney General. Just don't process the rest of them.
So
and
you're saying what is the Attorney General doing with them? And they're like, don't worry about it.
No, it's not that don't worry about it. It's that we're not doing anything with them because he's not getting them because we have no policy for what we're doing with them.
And that is a lie.
And that is a complete lie. So I got this strategy from when I wanted information on Kansas. I wanted information on how Kansas was going to implement its driver's license revocation stuff. I wanted to know about the system. I got from just cold calling the employees on the number that you find on the website because I tried emailing them and they don't respond to you because they know that they can. So if you call someone, you actually get the answer. I got the information that the state had been marking internally all the people that had changed their gender. Assigned Media confirmed that reporting 5 days later. I was extremely proud of myself.
Hey.
But I do that with Indiana too, and I call them and I'm like, okay, what are you doing with these birth certificates? She's like, oh, we're sending them to the Attorney General. I'm like, still? You're still doing that? And she's like, well, yeah, but like, why don't you guys say that you're doing that? Like, you keep accepting these. The reason that he wants them is because he challenges their court orders after they've already been issued. So he needs to know which ones to look for. So he applies, and then he applies to intervene, whatever. He's such a piece of shit. Oh my God. His name is Todd Rokita, if you want to look him up and see how corrupt he is.
I love the calling because when you call people, that's beautiful journalism.
And so I do the same thing with Wyoming. And they're like, oh, we require a birth certificate now. I'm like, okay, so let me get this straight. You require the birth certificates that you will no longer issue. I'm like, yeah, that's right. So that's effectively a ban. Just make that clear.
Wait, so they want the birth certificate to be able to change your
gender, but they don't
license.
give you one. But they don't give you one.
Okay.
Of course.
Of course.
And so I then file a public records request. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to pull it up because this is for dramatic effect.
No, please.
Because this took so much back and forth. I basically I sent them, I'm like, I want all internal communications that resulted in the creation of the policy. I want a guidance email laying out the requirements, any communications between the Office of the Attorney General and the DOT, any communications between the Department of Health and the DOT. I didn't think I was going to get that, but I just wanted to see if I could. And they took the maximum amount of days to respond to that. They have 7 days, and they took 7, 5 business days, 7 days. And then from there, it's 30 calendar days. They did not fulfill it. I had to be like behind them so that they would do it. Eventually, I was told that they would have like an intra-department meeting just to discuss my request.
Whoa.
And they ended up giving me this response. They just said, there are no documents available that meet the criteria of your request. The removal of the gender designation change request form was not due to a policy change. This was a response to House Bill 32, which is the What is a Woman Act. Their passing of the bill, the gender designation change request form was removed. And so I send them an email. I'm like, I'm sorry. I believe you've misinterpreted my request. I'm seeking records that will help me understand the discrepancies. I named the discrepancies that I saw from Internet Archives. And then I said, I will also reiterate that my request included the new formal written policy of the Wyoming Department of Transportation for gender changes, in parentheses, a guidance email laying out the requirements would also suffice, as well as its enactment date, considering that I was able to get a consistent answer on the requirements from 2 different employees. I find it difficult to believe that a date-stamped email to employees explaining the new requirements does not exist. Of course, they wait 30 days again to send me the letter, and then they finally send me the email. And the email was actually from May 2025. In their words, they had just forgotten to update the website sometimes. They had removed one instance, but then they didn't remove the form, and they didn't remove this other reference.
If this was so dire and so important to these people and like such a thing that was going to like ruin society, you're taking a really long time and you have no guidelines for it.
Idaho adopted their birth certificate thing in 2024.
Yeah.
But they still had that injunction, so it didn't accomplish much. Right. And then, but they didn't say anything either. But that day was when they took down the form. It was that day, the day of the effective date of the law. These people, they waited until at least February 16th to take down that form. It's like, do you care or not? Like,
right.
I don't understand.
If there's no formal retraining or whatever about it, then you can't really care that it's not an emergency. There's not a run on birth certificates.
Yeah, like it's so stupid, and yet it angered me that it had to go that long,
right,
to get an answer on something that they should have published. This is something that you publish when you change your policy. You publish that,
right?
But no, instead the state goes, "Oh yeah, we don't have anything," and they like that's a very calculated response, considering that this request was CC'd to the Senior Assistant Attorney General, an Assistant Attorney General, the Director of the Department of Transportation, the Deputy Director of Transportation, the Driver Services Program Manager, and the Public Affairs Officer. So, yeah, I don't think that they didn't think this through.
Right. So what did it say?
Yeah. It ended up saying, yeah, we require the sex cannot use anything other than is indicated on birth certificate, passport, or legal presence document.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's not as restrictive as my state, as Florida, as Kansas, but it's still pretty bad. It's the same as Idaho. It's the same as Iowa.
Wyoming is crazy to me.
Yeah.
Cynthia Loomis is my enemy. She's like their representative, I think.
Yeah.
If you Google her, she looks like you had AI make a MAGA person. And like also her big thing is, one of her big things is that she wants to make it so that bears are no longer, or grizzly bears are no longer protected by the Environmental Species Act.
What?
Oh yeah, this is the whole thing.
Oh my God.
I wrote something for my Substack, which was like, why the fuck does this lady hate bears? But basically, it's to be able to use the land however they want and get out from under protections, blah, blah, blah. But she's like making it like states' rights, where she's like, well, don't you think we in Wyoming know best than the people in Washington, like what's endangered and what isn't?
No, like look at their education ranking and you'll know that no, Wyoming does not know better.
The people of Wyoming, sorry to you, but I'm from Florida. I'm allowed to say, listen, Alexandra's Texas, I'm Florida. We're all in this together.
we are all in this together.
Wow.
So that's story number one, just as a little tangent. That is
Yeah.
honestly not the worst state that I've had to research, because Missouri has, like, for me, they didn't lie to me in the public records request, and that's why they get points. But Missouri, it's so weird because I was checking Missouri because I couldn't find anything on their website. And I knew that in 2024, they had taken down their form. They previously just required a doctor to sign off on it. And now they require you to either present a court order or a proof of surgery.
Okay.
And I
Interesting.
call them, I kid you not, I am on hold with their stupid hold music for an hour and 45 minutes because they do not know what they're doing. Oklahoma responded immediately, okay? But Missouri,
Wow.
they don't know what they're doing. I'm on hold for an hour, 45 minutes. Eventually they tell me, no, that's still the policy. We still need a court order or proof of surgery. And I'm like, okay. So I leave it at that. I'm like, okay, answer solved. I still email them. Never got a response from that, by the way.
But it's not on the website anymore?
It's not on the website. They just say additional documents may be required if you're changing your gender. That's it. That's all it says. And so I leave it at that. I get a message from a reader in April, and they tell me, look, they're not letting me change it. I'm from a state that doesn't let me change it. But here, I've got a court order. I've got proof of surgery, but they don't let me change it. So I go again. I try a different method. I use the live chat on their website. And they still tell me, no, court order, proof of surgery, that's correct. That's what we know. So I tell that to the person. They're like, no, they're still not letting me. I have this email from the customer service person. They're telling me I need a birth certificate. And I'm like, why would you need a birth certificate? So I filed a public records request, and I get a very fancy looking policy from November of 2025 that Missouri had indeed changed their policy to require a birth certificate.
For your driver's license?
Yeah. And I think the thing that bothers me the most about that is the first time that they did this, they got attention. This was on AP. This was on NBC. This was national news that Missouri had quietly changed its policy to now require the court order proof of surgery instead of just the really simple form. And now it's been 5 months since Missouri does this, and I'm the first one to find out.
Yeah.
There was no media attention. Like, I don't have infinite amount of time to be able to, well, now, like, that was like a whole thing. That was just a concerted effort. I can't be harassing every single state to make sure that the policy is still the policy that they say. I do it every once in a while, but I have other things to report on. So it's like, I wish more people were paying attention to that. I wish more people were saying, wait a minute, like, this changed. Why did it take so long for someone to ask a question?
Because they don't have anyone on staff that's on the trans beat. And if they do, it's someone that isn't trans so that they can be objective.
That's true.
There's also the amount to which the New York Times has covered transness
Oh my God.
in a negative way. Like, there was a study that came out that was like, this absolutely created public opinion from a quote unquote left-leaning publication, although they're not.
Yeah, they're not left-leaning.
They're centrist, if anything. Probably conservative. So, and I think in years and years and years ago, there would be a place that would hire you to do that.
Yeah.
And would be, oh, this person is doing good work. We'll hire them to come on and do this beat. And the mainstream media has been a complete mystery to me, probably for the last 10 or more years. There's no coverage of these things. And so that's why it's able to be like an avalanche, a ball going down, 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 down into catastrophe, because nobody pays attention until someone else reports on it. And even then, and it's usually an independent journalist, and even then it's not really taken seriously, or it might be a blip in another story, or there's this idea of competition where, oh, well, we have to get it ourselves. It would be irresponsible or something to take it from independent journalists, but then independent journalists are the only people doing it. So it's like, well, why don't you hire this person to do it?
Yeah, or like, let's just talk about this Movement Advance Project.
What's that?
Because the LGBT map people, the people that make the maps, if you look up those people, they are like, they're referenced constantly by media. And I cannot even begin to tell you how many policies like I've seen that are, some of these are out in the open, some of these aren't. Some of these I've had to be completely on their tail just to get a basic answer. So like, this is a bit of a humble brag. I'm the first known person to have found policies on birth certificates, driver's licenses, and Medicaid for all 50 states.
Yeah. And you're a 19-year-old person where this is a focus for you out of your home in Texas.
And my dorm in Illinois.
Yeah.
But It's not hard. It takes me very little, to be fair. Arkansas and North Carolina, I patched up all the Medicaid holes that I had late last month. And just those 2 states took me 5 hours. That was horrible. I lost so many brain cells. But I mean, I wish more people were covering this. Like, I have these trackers and they're great, but I wish I wasn't the only place to get this information.
Yeah.
I wish that when the media looks towards Movement Advance Project, that they can see the exact same data that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Because I double check my data all the time. Meanwhile, and I'm not trying to throw shade explicitly, but like Movement Advance Project, for example, Utah Medicaid does cover it. They don't have that. Wyoming Medicaid very explicitly doesn't cover it, and they don't have that. Like, it's just,
Here's the thing.
I don't understand.
Right now, it is very frustrating in the independent journalist section because I see so many articles get published mainstream on things that I've seen from people on Substack for months, a year, and I can't solve that. Like, I keep thinking about my friend was telling me about how eventually Rachel Maddow started reporting on rapid response. It was like so late in the game, and she was like, they're using whistles. And when I tell you it was 7 to 8 months past when people started doing that,
Mhm.
and it feels very helpless. And
Yeah, I mean, let's just look at current corporate queer media. Pink News, LGBTQ Nation, Advocate, they
yeah,
all just steal my stories and give me credit. I had that story about the Kansas woman last week, which I should probably go into. I'll go into it after I finish this.
Okay.
Pink News just straight up ripped it. They were quoting her as if she spoke with them. She didn't speak to anyone but me. I just want to make
Yeah.
that clear. And they were quoting her as if it was them. And then in the final paragraph, they were like, and she told all of this to Transitics. And I'm like, okay, well, fuck you.
they should pay you.
Both LGBTQ Nation and Pink News have plagiarized me before, like just very explicitly, to the point where I was able to prove that they used an asset from me because
boy.
I had fucked up the margins just a little bit. and I shrunk it down. I counted the pixels. I'm like, guys, never do this again. And to be fair, they have not done that again. And they edited their post to credit me for the asset. And I was like, okay. This to me was so weird because Advocate, they reported on the Kansas story 6 days late.
Yeah.
6 days. And they were treating it
Yeah.
as if it's breaking news. They posted on Reddit as if it's breaking news. They don't even put that the charges were dropped in the headline. And at
Right.
least Pink News and LGBTQ Nation did that. And so someone says, okay, well, you should have also mentioned the charges were dropped. I respond to that comment and I'm like, well, yes, they're reporting on it as if it's been a week. The very least they could have done is
Look up what happened.
put it in the headline
Yeah.
because people don't read past the headline. Christopher Wiggins, editor of The Advocate, unfollowed me over that comment. I'm not kidding.
It's like they don't have any money, and I get that. But you can't.
Do they not have money? Their websites are full of ads.
Yeah.
They're just full of ads. They just constantly ask you, give us money, give us money. Like, watch our show that always appears like half your screen when you're trying to look at one of their stories. Like, no,
Yeah.
I just want to read the news.
Yes. And there's also hopelessness that I guess I thought there would be more outrage about certain things that not even queer media has focused on, because I do think a valid critique is that queer media focuses on pop culture. And
Oh, that's so valid. Oh my God. Because they don't have the guts to get any other stories.
it's very white gay men focusing on pop culture. And I will say this is a critique of our community as well, is that the stuff that does well is pop culture stuff. I have reported on so many things on my Substack, and the article that got the most traffic and like is still whatever is about how male celebrities are doing sex work on Quinn and they pretend that they aren't.
Oh my God, that
And-
is so weird.
and that was like discourse. And like I think it's a valid critique and it's a good story, and it's also about sex work and about how men are treated with sex work. So it's not like complete fluff, but I was so mad because I also had to go into the FBI over my Instagram. I got
Okay.
called into the FBI, and that story did less well than this one.
Are you serious? No, that's ridiculous. That's so
completely.
messed up. See, I just don't touch the pop culture. One, because I'm not cultured. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't read pop culture stuff. I don't know how to write pop culture stuff. Like, I've taught myself how to be a journalist. I basically taught myself how to write. I do not know how to write about pop culture. I've always thought celebrity culture was stupid.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't always think that, but I think now I feel a little bit like I was fooled into thinking that pop culture was going to save trans people.
Yeah, no, it's never gonna save us. No, 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 no.
That doesn't mean it's not good to document us, but
Mhm.
it isn't gonna save us. And I think a lot of people made money off of me by kind of convincing me of that. Anyway, please still listen to this podcast. I'm a journalist now. I went to school for journalism and was a journalist for years and years before I came to Hollywood. Then I started doing Hollywood stuff. But I was always doing this show, which has always been reporting and journalism based. And so I was, even in the very beginning when I started this show, I was like, oh, this is just another thing that's part of my like media empire. And my dad was like, no, you're using your journalism degree. This is journalism. And I fought that for a hot minute. And then now I'm like, no, it was journalism the whole time.
So, like me, you decided that you were gonna be a journalist.
I have a degree.
Okay, I'm not even getting a journalism degree.
You don't need it because it doesn't even make sense
It
now.
doesn't actually, like, for me, it doesn't even make sense.
You're doing
So-
the things that, and anybody with an interest, like you're doing the stuff that you could do as a journalist. You are, and as a constituent of the United States, you are allowed to call and ask things. You are
Yeah.
allowed to, this is not you bothering them. This is not you, this is their job to provide these things.
I mean, it's not even that. It's more of a, you guys aren't going to tell me. So, yes, it might be a little bit unethical to not tell them that I'm a journalist. I wouldn't lie. I'd say, yeah, I'm a journalist, or yeah, I'm
Right.
researching this.
Mm-hmm.
But I also am not going to say, hi, I'm a journalist. I've got some questions for you, because I know that they don't respond if I do that, which I do have to do over email.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I just do that. And then it's just, okay, thank you for the information.
Ideally, they would tell a journalist more.
They will tell you less.
They tell you less.
But they don't know that they're not supposed to tell this to regular people, because I could just be some random customer that's trying to change my gender marker.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was it's a weird experience.
The thing that I got called into the FBI over was posting about an ICE agent in LA who doesn't wear a mask.
That'll do it.
And I was I went to journalism school.
Mhm.
That is completely allowed. There were so many things that I did as a reporter that I learned I could do that are not doxing, though that wasn't a word back
Yeah.
then, really. But I was like, to create the word doxing is so funny because I was doing stuff all the time. Like one of my biggest stories was I was like in college and I just went to a city council member's YouTube channel and clicked into videos, and they had a video that was unlisted, but it wasn't private. And it was him announcing that he was running for mayor. And I was like, oh, and it was this idea of like that I had broken into something. And I was like, you put it up. Like all I did was go an extra step and say, oh, I wonder what this guy's YouTube channel, what if you click videos, what it would show.
They just hate it when you ask questions.
Exactly. But okay, anyway, what's the third? The
Okay.
show often devolves into me and reporters talking about reporting. But yeah, what is the third story? The Kansas story, I guess, that has to do with all of this.
I think that's pretty recent. So I'm gonna talk about that for a little bit.
Okay.
So I spoke with this woman named Chris Ripper. She, like other people in Kansas, she was forced to change her gender marker back to her biological sex
Mm-hmm.
because of the law that Kansas passed, whatever. So she drives home from work. She gets her license. She gets it on March 25th. She drives home from work on May 5th, and her car's headlights automatically turn off because she drives over a patch of sunlight, and a cop pulls her over. A cop pulls her over, and she told me that he spent like 10 minutes questioning her. He didn't believe her license was real because it shouldn't say M. I mean, I guess she passed so well that they just can't tell. She said that she was sent off with a verbal warning. And then a month later, she receives this notice that she had failed to appear before her county's court for an arraignment because she was charged with operating a motor vehicle without a valid license, which is a Class B misdemeanor, gives you a permanent criminal record, throws you in jail for 6 months, gives you a fine of up to $1,000. It's just crazy. And they told her, okay, if you don't appear within 30 days, we're going to revoke your license. And she literally was not told about any of that until she receives the notice. She literally told me, like, look, I just got this notice in the mail. I can't even call anyone to double check because everything's closed. They did not tell her. All she
Right.
knew from the case was just looking up the case number on the notice, which is just ridiculous. And I had to explain to her that she was being charged with a crime because they did not even tell her that. It was so ridiculous.
Okay.
And so this happens. I get her in contact with some lawyers. Thankfully, the county prosecutor agrees to drop the charge. That happened about 3 hours after the story went live, I believe. And just the hypocrisy from that is just something that really angered me, because this is an ID that the state forced her on to have. She was fine before this. She was completely fine. And yet now the state is arguing.
This is what's going to put trans people in jail.
I kid you not. This is what Attorney General of Kansas, Chris Kobach, who is also a gigantic piece of shit. He was the one who pushed for this law in the first place, because he lost the court case over the sex definitions law. Also, like, he said it required driver's licenses to display someone's sex assigned at birth. The Kansas governor, who I have other issues with, but she didn't agree with that, so they fought about it. The Kansas Supreme Court eventually said, no, you're wrong, Attorney General Chris Kobach. So they started doing that again. He pushes the legislature to pass this law, and they do. And in court, because it's being challenged, he says, Kansas driver's license must contain objective, accurate sex information because they are used to identify the individual in a variety of situations, including interactions with law enforcement. That's the first thing that he listed. The first thing that he listed was interactions with law enforcement. So very clearly not.
This is going to cause problems at the airport. This is going to cause problems, and put trans people in jail, which is what they want.
It's what they want, and this is the first case that we know about that they tried to do that. I'm very happy that it didn't stick, but I don't have confidence that the next guy isn't just going to try to, like, say it happens in rural Kansas, or say it happens in fucking Abilene, Texas,
Florida.
or in Florida. What are they going to do? Like, is the county prosecutor going to want to convict? Probably. They'll probably find a judge that's going to be able to want to do it. Because, to me, the fact that this woman was charged with a crime for complying with the ID law is beyond ridiculous.
It's really scary and heartbreaking. And also, I pointed out, I think in your comments, what made me laugh so hard is that Chris Ripper is K-R-I-S, and Chris whatever the
Chris Kobach
is also K-R-I-S. They are both named Chris.
I know, I was like, wait. Oh my God. Like, when I was writing it, and I think I told you this, I was like, wait, they're both named Chris. Oh my God. I have to be calling her Ripper instead of Chris in the other places, because then it's going to get really confusing.
And how do you not see it's a gender neutral name?
Chris Kobach is genuinely, there are a lot of attorney generals that I hate. Keith Kotz, this is the thing that I didn't mention. When he was on the Wyoming Supreme Court, because of course he was on the Wyoming Supreme Court, he was the lone dissent in MH, the Laramie County Department of Health, I think that's what it's called, which was another case over trans people's birth certificates in 2020. Lone dissent. He was like, no, this is wrong. That policy shouldn't exist. Now he's arguing to get rid of it. So obviously there's something to be said there. But the good thing is that 2 judges have actually recused themselves in that case. The 2 worst judges. One of them, which was the former Attorney General of Wyoming, that argued that case. And another one that was appointed fairly recently. They recuse if they have ties to the Attorney General's office. It's like a frequent thing that they do in the state. So that leaves 3 judges, one which was appointed in 2022, and 2 that were part of the majority in the 2020 case. So we might be seeing Wyoming lose that case, which I'm going to be very happy about, because they deserve that so bad after the shit that they put me through just to get information. Come on.
Well, I'll be delighted to read about that.
I will also be very delighted to read about that, because...
Well, I'll read it on your website.
I swear, there are a few states that I hate more than Wyoming. Kansas, honestly, because I hate Laura Kelly. This is what I was hinting at. I just want to say this and then I'll shut up. But she, in October of 2025, she updated the Kansas Medicaid plan to stop covering gender-affirming care. She made that decision herself. So Kansas in 2025 passed Senate Bill 63. That was their gender affirming care ban for minors. And the Kansas medical assistance people, it mandated that they drop the coverage for people under 18. Laura Kelly went and said, well, no, I'm going to drop coverage for everybody.
She just unilaterally made that decision?
Yes, I've been trying to get answers from them. I've not been able to get answers from them. I've also had to be similarly harassing them. They missed the window by like 20 days just to give me a basic ass response. But so they do this and they have 3 different policies. The first one is for people 0 to 18. They said this one's going to be applied retroactively. So these were all released in October, but they said retroactively, if you got gender affirming care between now and when the law was passed, you're going to have to pay that back to us. And they said, if you're over the age of 21, this is somehow the second most problematic one. I just want to make that clear. They said, we're not going to cover it for you unless you started prior to October 1st, which was it was September 1st.
Okay.
And even then, we're going to make that determination on an individualized basis. Mind you, Senate Bill 63 only mandated the one from 0 to 18. They did not mandate the rest of it. And then the last one is for people between 18 and 20. And this one needs a different policy because there's some federal standard called Early and Periodic Diagnostic Screening and Testing, EPDST. And they have to basically cover anything that's medically necessary, regardless of whether or not they cover it normally. So like, for example, when Idaho once again dropped its coverage, I didn't say anything either, in February of this year, they still maintain that coverage for people between 18 and 20. Because of those federal rules. But Kansas realized that there's one exception to that, which is if the treatment is experimental. So what did they do? They said, Kansas Medical Assistant Program considers these treatments to be experimental and they will no longer be covered. Fuck you.
Wow. They're really allowed. This is why it's hard to keep up with, and it's so on purpose because it's so confusing and individual, and they want it to just be a mess of people unable to follow anything that's happening or getting updated.
Yeah, like I caught that in January and I consider that to be a fast turnaround time considering some of the things that I found. But in general, I mean, the fact that Kansas just randomly did that, a Democratic governor who supposedly defends us, and she goes and makes a declaration that is worse than literally every single other state that has done this, because the other states are like, yeah, we're not going to cover it because we hate you. But this woman, she goes, no, I'm going to designate it experimental, which, by the way, sets a horrible precedent, because if the state legislature decides, yeah, we're going to ban it because it's experimental, they're going to be able to do that. They're just going to be able to do that. And it is wrong to me that they can just do this, and they can, and no one pays attention because they know that they can get away with it.
That's what I'm saying is there's so much and they can't possibly keep up with it unless, and what the precedent is setting, unless they are locked and loaded the way that you are, or it changes so quickly, or the random age stuff. I mean, are kids going to have to pay this back? Is that happening?
I don't think there were enough trans kids left to actually be able to get a consistent answer on that. It was probably just a few of them. And even then, they're probably too busy challenging the restriction overall rather than just that. It's a shame. It's a shame. And there's one Republican in the state legislature. This guy is named Mark Schreiber. And he says, my daughter had a chronic condition. She was like 4. And I don't think trans kids are all that different from my daughter. Their parents are just trying to help them in the same way that I was trying to help my daughter. So this is one of the few Republicans that very consistently votes against anti-trans stuff. I find that guy super interesting. I want to speak to him one day. If I have an excuse, I will reach out.
Do it now. What a fascinating guy.
The other guy that fascinates me is Merv Reep. I spoke to him in February. He is from Nebraska. He single-handedly blocked all the anti-trans bills this year. He single-handedly blocked all of them but one last year because it was a sports bill, and he's a Republican, but he's pretty moderate. He really only budged on the sports thing, and he budged on gender affirming care for minors in 2023, but he made it so that it wasn't a ban. It was a ban on surgery. It was just like a therapy hour requirement for trans kids. And he says he doesn't want to move that. He seriously hates bathroom laws. And he actually changed his mind on that after speaking to trans constituents of his, which I admire. I admire that from him.
The Republican Party is supposed to be small government. If people are Republicans and they're like Republicans who are part of the party of old, they should be worried about this being overreach.
Like Asa Hutchinson, who's the former governor of Arkansas, who vetoed the gender affirming care ban, even though he doesn't particularly like trans people. he vetoed that because he said it was a government overreach.
Well, they should all be saying that.
They should all be saying it, and they don't. It's so annoying. They don't.
Oh my God, I could talk to you for another hour. Do you want to tell my audience where to find your work and to support it?
Yeah, you can find it at transiticsnews.com. I feel like it would be easier if you just link this because I feel like they're not gonna spell it right.
Yeah, I'll do it.
I don't really ask people to support me monetarily. You can if you want to, but
No, it's so hard.
it is hard. I would appreciate it if you can. Obviously, I really want this to be like a full-time career after I graduate college and not have to take an actual job that takes my time away from this because I feel like I am needed here.
This is a job. You being on hold for 2 hours in a way that nobody else is going to do.
That song was stuck in my head for 4 days. It was so like, no, I do not even want to explain to you how bad that was. My head was just repeating that. And I was, no, never want to do that again, ever, ever.
So you got to get paid for that. You got to get paid for that.
Maybe so.
Thank you so much.
Of course, it was so nice meeting you. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. A Thousand Natural Shocks, a Bad with Money podcast is hosted by me, Gabe Dunn, and edited by me, Gabe Dunn. Theme song by Zach Sherwin and Sam Barbera. Love you guys. Bye.